Aloha! Welcome back to Yama Studios. My name is Hanamaru Yama. I am a scalp micropigmentation practitioner at Yama Studios, which is a paramedical tattoo clinic based in Honolulu, Hawaii. Today, I'm going to answer one of the most commonly asked questions about scalp micropigmentation, and that is, how do you do scalp micropigmentation? This is a really good question. It's a little bit different from traditional tattoo in that while the FDA defines tattoo as anything that implants ink or pigment underneath the skin, scalp micropigmentation is really a distant cousin of traditional tattoo. The main difference between traditional tattooing and scalp micropigmentation are the tools, the needles, and the pigment. I actually have them here and I'm going to show you so you can see how they look a little bit different. If you've ever seen a traditional coil machine, they're very large. So if you were to look at a traditional coil machine, it would look a little bit like this, except for there would be an extension here with a single feed long needle and then an attachment motor at the end. They're a great deal heavier, they're a lot louder. Whereas this is very quiet, and the reason it's much quieter is because the motor is not inside the pen, it's actually inside this box that's over my shoulder. And that controls, well, I control via the box, the needle depth, vibration, and then speed. So speed is going to be how fast the needle comes in and out. Vibration is going to be the rate at which the machine vibrates in order to get the pigment under the skin. And the needle depth obviously means how much of the needle is going to be coming out of the actual machine. So that's controlled here. And that is much different than a coil machine where the artist controls the depth by hand, and then they control the speed of the machine via the motor that's attached to the end. It's a different balance, a different type of expertise it takes to use this versus to use a traditional coil machine. So this is what you're looking at for scalp micropigmentation. The needle goes in the top here, and then the end is actually where the cord plugs in that goes to the motor. So that is an SMP machine. Now, the needles are another huge part of this. I have two different ones. One is the type that goes in a traditional coil machine, just to show you the difference between how they look. Now, this is a needle that goes into a coil machine. It goes in and is hooked by this hook at the very end. And then this part comes down through the coil machine, and this is what feeds the pigment up into the machine, up into the gun. So this is actually what a traditional tattoo artist would use, and this is what I use. So this is a pre-packaged cartridge. Now, scalp micropigmentation practitioners use usually two needles. There's two different needles that are the standard to get the kind of result that people want from scalp micropigmentation. And they are two different formations. The first one is 3RL, and what that stands for is round liner. It's the type of needle that goes into these needle formations. So there are three in a 3RL, 3 round liner. And when you have 3 round liners, you get a reduced chance of what's called blowout. Newer artists or practitioners sometimes use 1RLs. That's a 1 round liner. When you use a 1 round liner, if you're inexperienced, if you go too deep, if you go too shallow, you're not going to get the result that you're looking for. With a 3RL and a 5RL, you can alternate between the two, and as your scalp micropigmentation heals, because it's a 2 to 3 procedure service, you're going to see a variation in the size and realistic nature of the tattoo hair follicle replications. And that is why these needles are so important. Not only are they pre-packaged and sterile, but the diameter of these needles are specifically for scalp micropigmentation. So they're smaller than a traditional 3RL, because traditional tattoo artists can use the same type of needles, but the diameter used for scalp micropigmentation is unique and specific. That's very important. On that note also, if you go into a scalp micropigmentation practitioner's office and you notice that they are not using individually sterilized, pre-packaged needles, you need to leave. That is not safe practice, and it's very important to make sure that your practitioner is taking your safety into account. You should never have someone open a needle before you get there. In most places, it's the law. The tattoo artist must open your needle in front of you, and you can see that it's single use and sterile. So keep that in mind as well for scalp micropigmentation appointments. And finally, we have the star of the show. This is scalp micropigmentation pigment. It's different from traditional tattoo ink. Traditional tattoo inks, in order to achieve a wide variety and range of colors, have a lot of different additives. These additives are difficult to control as they age. They can change different colors, they can oxidize under your skin. So this is actually a different type of pigment than a traditional tattoo ink. A traditional tattoo ink is carbon-based. This is iron oxide-based. It's widely regarded as one of the more stable bases for any type of pigment that would be used for cosmetic tattoo. The company that I use is actually called Permablend. They are one of the best producers of pigment in the world. Very highly respected. They're stringent with their sanitary measures, with their pigment formulations, and how stable their compounds are. And that's why I use them. They give great results and they last a really long time. And that is huge when you're talking about the realistic nature of the outcome and how you want it to heal over time. Because it is part of my job to make sure that I give you a tattoo that is going to age well over time. That's a huge part of tattooing. So now we've gone over all three of the components for a realistic scalp micropigmentation procedure and what is used. So the way scalp micropigmentation is done is I would take my machine, I would adjust it to make sure it's at the right speed and depth for your scalp. Then I would custom mix a pigment that I know is going to work for your skin tone, test it up against your skin, make sure it's the right skin tone, the right darkness, the right depth for fading, and then I would use a specific needle based on how thick your skin is in order to achieve a much more dispersed look for the first appointment. And then after your first appointment, you have 7 days of healing time and another session. Typically in the second session, I use a much larger needle, so I would use a 5 RL in order to make all of your hair follicles have a little bit of variation, which is gonna make them look more real as they heal. And then after that, you would have 7 days more healing, and then we would do the same thing. Each appointment is in descending order of time required. So you'd have your first appointment, which is around 2 to 4 hours in order to do an entire scalp. The appointments go down in time required as you go along. So 2 to 4 hours, then 2 to 3 hours. Last appointment can be 2 hours to 1 hour, depending on what your procedure looks like. And so that's the general overview of how you do scalp micropigmentation. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe below, hit that thumbs up button. If you have questions, comments, or feedback, just drop that in the comments below and I will reply to you. If you want to come see me for a consultation or want these things explained more in depth to you, please feel free to get in contact with me via my website. You can shoot me a DM, you can send me a message on Facebook, or email me at my website, and I'd be happy to help you with that. Thank you so much for watching, and aloha.